In this homework problem, we're going to create an error check tab. The error check tab is going to check these 3 tabs over here to make sure at all times that there are no errors. If we accidentally overwrite something that we shouldn't overwrite, say right over here, you'll notice that everything will then reflect that there is an error where the information then showcases as such. So your job is to set up this error check by first populating this information here and then ensuring that every single tab has this error check tab or this error check flag so that we know instantly anytime that we have a potential error. Think you can do it? Go ahead and pause your video and meet me back here when you're ready to go over the solution. Okay, so let's just have a look and understand what I have in this tab. So over here is just some assumptions. I have the error check message that I could set to on or off. If it's a success message, I want it to read model functioning properly. If it's an error message, I want it to read error. Please check the error check tab. And now over here, I could set up all of those error checks. I have the sheet, the actual value of the error check. If I want the value to, let's say, be, I don't know, above 1 or whatever, I could have this threshold, the resulting message, and then the icon that will display. Speaking of icons, you'll notice that we have over here the icon for an error, which is actually a picture that I placed inside a cell. And then the icon for no errors, which again is a picture that I placed inside a cell. The value over here, as you can see this little button over here, I can toggle to place over a cell, or I could click this button back to place it inside a cell. The value of placing a picture inside a cell is the fact that you can then refer to it in other cells. I'll show you that in just a sec. Okay, so the first check that I want to set up is on my drivers tab. And the only check that I really have in place is the check right below for assets equaling liabilities and owner's equity. Now, I may add some additional checks later, but for now, this is the only check. So let's go ahead and set that up together. I'm going to write that the sheet is the drivers, and I'm going to say equals count ifs. So I want to count this range over here. If it's greater than 0, I want to count it if it is less than 0. And then I also want to count it if it is equal to ref, which is what is going to allow me to check if maybe a cell was deleted. And let's just see, it looks like I have some errors. I believe I need to put an ampersand after each of these over here. Perfect. Now the threshold should really be 0, so I'm just going to press 0, and now the result. I'm going to say equals if this is less than or equal to the threshold, then let's just say no errors. Otherwise, please check bottom of drivers tab. All right, well, let's close that. Okay, so now we have no errors over here. Then I'm just going to say equals if this equals no errors, then refer to this, otherwise refer to this. And this should just be an S as such. Okay, so now we have our first error check in place. Okay, and now I am just going to set up the rest of these cells to show no errors as well. I'm gonna have to change the message here, but let's just put the actual now success or error message. So I'm gonna say equals if this equals on, then count ifs this over here does not equal, and this is the does not equal sign in Excel, ampersand, no errors. Okay, so then I'm just going to say if this over here equals 0, then pull from the success message, otherwise pull from the non-success message. All right, and then going back to the beginning of my if statement, if it is not on, that means it's off. We don't want to return anything. So I'm just going to put these 2 quotations. All right, and let's see what happens now if I hit enter. Okay, it says model functioning properly. So now I can say equals if this, comma, equals this, then give me this no errors. Otherwise, give me the error key as such. Okay, so it looks like now we have no errors. I'm going to convert this to a named range so I could refer back to it. I go to the name manager, and we're going to call this error underscore check and click OK. So now you can see error underscore check is here. So now I'm going to go over here. I'm going to say equals error check tab as such, model functioning properly. And let me just make this a little bit smaller. We don't need it to be this big as such. All All right, now I'm gonna copy and paste. I want pretty much every single tab to have these 3 cells on the very top. So I'm gonna come over here. I'm gonna go to the summary financials. Let's just insert these new rows. And let's come back to the template tab. And I'm gonna set that as such. I'm gonna go to the drivers tab. We already have that, those rows. So I'm gonna go ahead and enter that. Now in the income statement tab, let's just add some more rows. And I'm gonna come back here and I will just quickly do the same thing for all of the other tabs. Okay, perfect. So now I have in all of my tabs a location where I could actually see this status check. So let's just see what's gonna happen. I'm gonna overwrite in a cell that shouldn't be overwritten, and let's see what happens when I do. So I'm just gonna write 25 over here. And now it looks like for some reason the value is not pulling correctly. And I think it's because I actually need to separate these count ifs. So I'm gonna write count ifs as such, and then I'm gonna say plus count ifs, and let's just close that. And then again, plus count ifs. All right, this should now work. All right, now it looks like it did indeed populate. Please check the bottom of the drivers tab because we have 17 issues. So if I now go back, if I go to the drivers tab, you'll see it says error check everywhere. I'm just gonna take this information and copy it back. And now my model is back to functioning properly. So let's add a few more checks. I wanna double check that the net income that shows on the income statement equals to the drivers. So I'm just gonna put a new section called checks. Say net income equals drivers. And I'm just gonna take this here and I'm going to subtract that from the net income over here. Okay, and then for the balance sheet, I just want this check to say, well, we actually already have that. So I'm just gonna add a new row and say check. All right, and then for the cash flows, let's just make sure that the drivers is pulling correctly from the cash flows. So cash flows equals cash flows tab. Let's just copy the formatting as such. All right, and the way I'm going to do that is I'm just gonna take the cash shown over here equal to what we have in the cash flows, ending cash as such. So I'm gonna make this actually a minus. All right, let's now drag this forward as such. And then I am going to go to my error check tab and I'm checking only row 97 in the drivers tab. So I can now change this to row 98, which is where we just were. And it looks like the information works. So let's now do the same thing for the balance sheet and the income statement. And I'm just gonna copy and paste this information. I'm gonna come in and instead of drivers, I'm gonna come to the balance sheet and I'm just going to select all of the values over here. And I could also copy this now and put it in the other sections as such, and I'll hit okay. Now let's do the same thing for the income statement. So I'm gonna take this here, I'm gonna copy, I'm gonna paste. Now let's come to where it shows the balance sheet. And let's just select this section over here. And I will take all of this information and I will paste it as such. Excellent, and we'll keep this as 0. And let's just change this over here. Please check bottom of balance sheet tab and please check bottom of income statement tab. Excellent. Okay, so let's just double check this again. This information should be pulling directly from the drivers tab. So if I just enter in a random value, it looks like indeed I have an issue. I go back to my error check and I could see specifically that the issue is on the income statement tab. So it looks like it's working correctly. Let me just undo that by copying and pasting the information back as such. And let's just double check the balance sheet, make sure that that's working correctly. So I'll just write over a number over here. And it looks like when I do that, it says an error, but I don't see the error populating here. I wonder why exactly that is. The reason is because the cash flows is pulling directly from the balance sheet. But it looks like I still do have an error, and that is the fact that the drivers tab over here, I can press Control and then the left bracket. Over here, as you can see, the information shows differently. And that's because the cash flows tab is operating based off of the assumptions on this balance sheet tab and not pulling from the drivers tab. So if I just undo this over here, you'll see that indeed everything is back to functioning properly. Awesome. And now you just set up the error check tab. And now I can just delete these over here because we don't need them. as such.